I used to think silence meant peace, until I realized it was just the world's quiet way of ignoring me. Every morning I woke up on time, made coffee, checked emails, paid the bills, yet no one ever asked me, "Charlotte, how are you today?" No one saw the restless nights, or how I tucked chamomile tea bags into my cup like I was holding on to something fragile. I can't remember the last time I did something just for myself. All I know is that at 32 I was living a life I never chose and couldn't escape. My name is Charlotte Green. I live in a small apartment on the outskirts of Portland, Oregon. It rains a lot here, gray, damp, and sometimes it feels like I'm slowly melting into the raindrops on my window, quiet and invisible. I work remotely for a UX design firm, hidden behind my laptop screen 8 hours a day, and then a few more of so-called voluntary overtime, to earn extra, though really, it was to cover all the unnamed expenses of my family. My mother, Donna Green, is 64, retired 3 years ago. But she still calls me every time a bill needs paying: phone, gas, credit card, even the plumber's fee for her old house. "Charlotte, the heating maintenance fee came out again," she would say, with a voice soft and slightly tired, yet heavy with the expectation that I would take care of it. My older brother, Jason Green, is 6 years my senior. He used to work as an IT specialist for an insurance company in Seattle, but has been on a temporary break for nearly 2 years now because he needs time to realign his life. He currently lives in his old bedroom at our mom's house. Mine was turned into a storage room long ago. Jason has no steady income. He doesn't apply for new jobs. He says he refuses to do meaningless work for companies that don't value people. Meanwhile, I've been paying for his monthly therapy sessions, $120.00 each time, regularly, like a debt that will never be repaid. I didn't complain, didn't protest, I just clenched my teeth and kept going. Once, I called my mom to ask if Jason planned to work anytime soon. She was silent for a moment, then replied, "My son is going through a rough time, Charlotte. You wouldn't understand." I didn't argue further. I hung up, opened my banking app, and sent $120.00. We called it family support. I called it being slowly devoured, piece by piece. Every Sunday morning, I began by checking bills and planning expenses: electricity, water, groceries for mom, Jason's therapy, car payments on a vehicle I never even took for a joyride, because there was always something else to worry about. I carefully recorded everything in a budgeting app, calculated every single dollar, and skipped over the "for myself" category like it never existed. I can't remember the last real vacation I took. Whenever I opened Instagram and saw my friends lounging on beaches in Maui or paddleboarding in Florida, I just smiled weakly. I was being responsible. That's what people praise, right? But sometimes, in the middle of a gray afternoon, when my laptop screen blinked low battery, I'd feel like I couldn't breathe, until I had to get up, walk to the balcony, and inhale like it was the first breath I'd ever taken. No one knew how exhausted I was. No one asked. And I stopped answering questions that were never asked in the first place. People often think carrying burdens is a sign of strength. But no one tells you that strength without choice will crush you slowly, like an exhale that never ends. One night, I opened a world map on my browser, and my fingers stopped at Rome. Not because I had some burning dream to visit Italy, but because I needed a place far enough away that no one could call me at midnight asking for money transfers. I wanted to hear strangers speaking in the streets, sit under bougainvillea vines, sipping espresso, and not have to answer, "Charlotte, can you help me with this?" Rome. Just saying the name felt like the scent of toasted bread in the morning sun. I typed Italy cheese tour into Google, just to look. But then, I spent 3 hours curled up with my laptop, building a budget spreadsheet, checking flight prices, reading hotel reviews. I hadn't told anyone, not because I wanted to keep it a secret, but because I was afraid if I said it out loud someone would laugh. "Charlotte, a vacation?" I didn't have the time. I didn't have the right. But for the first time in years, I wanted something for myself. Not to please anyone, not to pay anyone back. Just to be me, for one brief moment. Instead of just buying a ticket for myself, I started thinking bigger. I wanted my mom to sit beneath a cream-colored umbrella, eating slices of pecorino romano, right there in Italy, like she always said she dreamed of. I wanted to see my dad smile. Really smile. Not that drained grin I saw on video calls, but while holding a glass of red wine in a vineyard in Lazio. Silently savoring. I found a small hotel in Trastevere, every street lined with sunshine and music. It had a balcony, outdoor breakfast, and ivy climbing around wooden windows. I saved it under dreams within reach. I began working longer hours, took on extra freelance jobs, cut my own expenses to the bone. No new shoes, no dinners out, not a single purchase outside the essentials. Eventually I had saved enough to buy round-trip tickets for 3, myself, my mom, and my dad. When I told them, my mom almost dropped the phone. Rome? Italy? Charlotte, are you serious? I smiled. For the first time, I saw her eyes light up. My dad simply nodded and quietly hung up the old world map from my childhood, marking Rome with a red dot. I imagined the trip every day, every hour. Mom in a white linen dress. Dad wearing the Panama hat I picked out. And me, finally in the family photo, not just the one behind the camera. 3 weeks before the flight, I got a call from the clinic. Jason needed a special therapy session. It cost more than usual. I almost said no, but I transferred the money anyway. 2 weeks before the flight, Mom called and said Jason was feeling worse, stuck in bed, and maybe he needed a change of scenery. I bit my lip. 1 week before the flight, I bought a notebook and wrote down every detail. Departure times, the tiny trattoria near our hotel, the cheese store for Mom, the vineyard for Dad. I thought if everything was in place, maybe, just maybe, the trip would really happen. I believed it. Until that morning. Flight day. I woke up feeling strange. A mix of excitement and wariness. Everything was ready, luggage packed, passport and itinerary printed, emailed to myself just in case. Only one final client meeting, then straight to the airport. I drove slowly along 18th Avenue, a route I knew by heart after 3 years of working remotely. Jazz played on the stereo, my fingers tapped lightly on the wheel. I didn't know it would be the last song I remembered before the accident. It all happened in a flash. Green light. A hard crash from the side. The sound of metal. Then, silence. When I opened my eyes, I was in the emergency room. Harsh white lights cutting into my eyelids. I don't remember who called the ambulance. I only knew my left arm was tightly bandaged, my ribs throbbed with each breath, and my head felt like someone had driven a burning rod through my skull. Everything blurred, like a broken dream. But the thing that stunned me most wasn't the physical pain. It was seeing my mom walk into my hospital room, not with concern in her eyes, but carrying the crossbody bag she'd bought for the trip. Dad followed behind. And Jason, holding a takeaway coffee cup from the hospital cafe, was smiling. Faintly. "Charlotte, you're awake. Your dad and we've decided to go to Rome anyway," Mom said, like announcing a change in lunch plans. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I tried to sit up, but pain pinned me down like a hammer. Dad avoided my gaze. Jason was texting. "You need to rest. Jason will go in your place. He could really use a break." Mom continued, adjusting her bag strap like this was brunch. I lay there, no tears, just a hollow, expanding through every inch of me. I, who wrote every line of that itinerary, who bought every ticket, who gave up every personal need for a year. I was erased from the dream I had built. They left after 15 minutes of small talk. "We'll send pictures," Mom said before closing the door. The hospital room turned unbearably quiet. Just the heartbeat monitor and the faint yellow ceiling light remained. I turned to face the wall. No more tears. Only one cold, sharp truth anchored in my spine. I wasn't just left behind, I was replaced. I don't remember how long I lay motionless in that room. I only remember the dim light of the IV monitor, the slow beeping of the heart monitor, and the cold, seeping into my fingers, even though I was covered with a blanket. I didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't fight. I just lay still, like an object forgotten, and now, no one needed to remember me. A nurse walked in, gently checking the IV line, and asked if I needed anything. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "Can I have my phone? It should be in my personal bag." She nodded and a few minutes later came back with a clear plastic bag. I searched with my left hand, trembling from the pain, from anger, from the cold. The phone was intact, the battery still had charge. I unlocked the screen. The wallpaper was a photo I'd taken of the three of us, me, Mom, and Dad, last Thanksgiving. I didn't hesitate. I deleted it. Then I replaced it with a plain blue background, empty like I felt in that moment. I opened the Rome trip folder. Everything was still there: hotel confirmations, the cheese tour, transportation bookings, flight tickets. I didn't think for long. I started canceling them one by one. First the hotel, 3 nights at the boutique place in Trastevere. A short email: canceled due to personal reasons. Then the cheese tour for Mom, canceled. The vineyard tour for Dad, canceled. The rooftop dinner I'd booked 4 weeks ago, canceled. I did it all slowly, as if peeling off the chains that had bound me for years. Not because I wanted them to suffer, but because I didn't want to be someone else's background anymore. I paused the longest at the email about their return flight. I imagined them arriving at the airport, tired from the trip, only to find no flight. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, canceled the tickets. There was no dramatic triumph, just a cold ping confirming the transaction had gone through. I placed the phone face down on the tray and closed my eyes. I didn't feel relieved. I didn't feel satisfied. I just felt calm. For the first time, I didn't have to explain anything to anyone. The first message came in at 2:03 a.m. A dim notification. "Jason Green is calling." I didn't answer. A minute later, a message. "This is too much, Charlotte. We're standing outside the hotel, no room, no pickup. Is this how you treat your family?" Then Mom, "You've really disappointed me. After everything I've done for you." Then Dad, all in caps, like he was yelling through the phone. "Fix this, now." I didn't respond. Not out of anger, but because I didn't owe them anything anymore. I pulled a paper menu from the hospital tray, flipped it over, and I started a tally. Calls, 3. Texts, 5. Voicemails, 2. By noon the count had passed 30 missed calls and nearly 20 texts. Not a single message asked, "Are you okay? Are you in pain? Do you need anything?" Just blame. Just demands. Just the same iron hooks of responsibility, clawing their way back, trying to pull me into the same invisible caretaker role I had always played. I didn't flinch. I crossed each line like I was documenting a lifetime of being used. On the 3rd day, just after I finished a round of physical therapy and was sitting by the window, the door burst open. They were there. Mom walked in first, angry eyes, messy hair, wearing the coat I'd bought her for the Rome trip. Jason dragged his suitcase behind him, face flushed red, Starbucks cup in hand like he was still on vacation. Dad stood at the back, silent as always, but his eyes looked lost. "Charlotte, how could you?" Mom shouted. We were abandoned in a foreign city, no hotel, no plan. Jason tossed the suitcase aside. "And you? Private room, 3 meals a day, nurses on standby. You think you're the victim?" I said nothing. I gripped the bed rail, stood up. My back still ached, my legs still weak, but I stood. "No, now it's time for the truth." The room fell silent. I looked at Mom. How many bills have I paid without saying a word? How many times has Jason been unemployed and I still transferred money for his therapy? How many meals, how many sleepless nights, how many parts of myself did I give up to keep this family from collapsing? Mom opened her mouth, I raised my hand. "Don't. I've counted enough." I turned to Jason. You turned down jobs. You passed on opportunities. And who supported you? Me. The one you never once asked. Are you okay? Mom whispered, almost too softly. We didn't know if you'd still be able to walk. If you ended up disabled, what then? We just wanted to make use of what was still usable. I felt a chill run down my spine. Yes, I didn't scream. I pressed the nurse call button. My voice steady. Amber, please call security. I'd like to add 3 people to my restricted visitor list. They thought I was joking. But within minutes, 2 security guards arrived. Calm, but firm. They're not allowed back. This is the patient's decision. Mom yelled my name. Jason muttered. Dad looked down. I didn't shed a tear. I just stood there, feeling like an old artery had finally been cut. Painful, but freeing. They walked out of the room, and for the first time in 32 years, I felt like I belonged to myself. 3 days after security escorted them out of my hospital room, no one came back. No more midnight calls. No more long, guilt-laced messages. No more heavy knots in my chest every time the phone buzzed. For the first time in years, I had peace. The hospital room, once just a space filled with pain, became my small sanctuary. I spent time truly taking care of myself. Reading, listening to music, breathing deeply, sleeping without jolting awake. Nurse Amber, who had quietly supported me from the beginning, stopped by every morning. One day, she brought a sprig of dried lavender and placed it in a small vase on my bedside table. You deserve a space to really heal, she said. I nodded, smiled. There was nothing more to add. In the days that followed, I began to recover faster than the doctors expected. Physical therapy was painful, but I pushed through. I wasn't just healing muscles, ligaments, or ribs. I was healing a soul that had been drained to the last drop. Friends and coworkers stopped by, not in crowds, not with noise, but with quiet warmth. Carmen, from the design team, was the first, bringing croissants and a latte from our favorite coffee shop. I didn't think you were into latte art, she laughed, handing me a cup with a tiny leaf etched into the foam. Then came Leo, the UI engineer with a smile brighter than sunlight, carrying a few old magazines and a USB filled with funny office videos. Don't watch while eating, he warned. We made a blooper reel just to get you laughing without a reason. I laughed. For the first time in a long while, my laughter wasn't stifled by any kind of worry. After 2 weeks, I could walk short distances without help. The day I walked from the hospital bed to the window on my own, the entire nursing team gave me a quiet round of applause, like I had won Olympic gold. I just smiled. But as I stood by that window, looking out at Portland's silvery sky, I realized I hadn't truly stood on my own for years. Discharge day came faster than a long exhale. I packed what little I had, a book I hadn't finished, a pair of worn slippers, and a few paper menus scribbled with notes. A record of all the calls, texts, and voicemails I had, once tallied to remind myself never to return to that version of life. No one came to pick me up, no flowers, no well wishes. But as I stepped out the hospital doors, I lifted my chin and took a deep breath. Not loneliness, freedom. When I opened the door to my small apartment, I froze. Not because it looked different, but because everything was still intact. No chaos, no unwashed dishes, no bills left ignored on the table. The kitchen was clean. On the table sat a vase of fresh sunflowers, my favorite. Beside it, a handwritten note from Carmen. Welcome home. We just looked after the place a bit while you were away. Fridge is fully stocked and the rocky road is reserved for Thursday. I laughed and opened the fridge. There really were 7 pints of ice cream, one labeled for each day of the week. A kind of care that didn't announce itself, that didn't come with conditions. I took a spoonful and cried. Not from sadness, but because for the first time, I didn't feel like someone's obligation. I didn't reach out to my family, but the news still came, through relatives, through Facebook, through screenshots of posts sent by people who actually knew the truth. My mother posted a long dramatic status, accusing me of being an ungrateful daughter who abandoned her parents in their time of need. Jason hinted vaguely that some people receive unconditional love, only to turn their backs out of selfishness. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't feel the sting, but because I no longer needed to explain myself. My relatives, Elisa, Dana, even my uncle in Ohio, commented under the post, sharing the truth. That I had paid for Jason's therapy. That I had held the family together while no one asked if I was okay. That I was left in a hospital bed while they vacationed using tickets I bought. The post disappeared a few days later. But the truth didn't. I started easing back into work. First part-time, then slowly returning to full-time. I didn't force myself, didn't plunge in head first. I learned how to walk, slowly but steadily. On my first day back at the office, a banner stretched across my desk. "Welcome back, boss lady." There was cake, a card, warm looks from co-workers, not because I helped them with deadlines, but because I was me. That night, I sat on my couch, fork in hand, laptop on my lap. I opened the flight booking site again. Typed in Rome. Same hotel, same cheese tour. Only one thing had changed. Just one name on the ticket. Mine. The plane landed at 6:14 a.m. Rome time. I sat by the window, watching the morning sunlight sweep across the deep red rooftops in the distance. The announcement still echoed in my ears. Benvenuti a Roma. I didn't check any luggage, just one small carry-on and a crossbody bag, light, simple. For the first time, I walked out of an airport carrying nothing but myself. Among the long row of drivers, I spotted a sign with my name. Miss Charlotte Green. I chuckled. No one had ever called me Miss, except on tax forms and doctor's appointments. But here, in the middle of Rome, it sounded like a greeting. The car glided over cobblestone streets, past flower-covered balconies, Vespas, and brick walls covered in ivy. The hotel I booked was tucked in a quiet corner of Trastevere, just as I imagined. Small, smelling of wood and sweet pastries, with a balcony overlooking the stone-paved street where morning musicians played. The receptionist smiled as she welcomed me, not needing to know whether I came alone or with anyone. My room was ready. The balcony table was already set. A breakfast for one person only, me. On the first day, I didn't follow any itinerary. I wandered as if Rome were an open book, and I was reading each line with my own footsteps. I didn't take photos, didn't post stories. No one needed to see. And I didn't need anyone to validate whether this trip was worth it. That afternoon, I stopped by a small shop, chose a plate of cheese and a glass of white wine. I sat there for over an hour, doing nothing but tasting and listening to locals chat. No one interrupted me. No one asked, "Charlotte, did you send the money yet?" I drank slowly, like I was savoring each second of a new life. On the second day, I joined the tour my mother had once dreamed of, the cheese and wine tasting in the countryside of Lazio. The guide led us through the vineyards, beneath a wooden canopy, where a breeze carried the scent of freshly cut grass. Each cheese came with a story, how it was aged, the source of the milk, the time it took to mature. I bit into a slice of Pecorino Romano, the one my mother had always said she wanted to try just once in her life. I closed my eyes. I didn't picture her face. I didn't feel regret. I simply ate and felt. Because now this dream was mine, and mine alone. On the third night, I sat at a small street-side restaurant, alone with a steaming plate of carbonara and a deep red glass of Montiano wine. Soft music played, people strolled by, some smiling. No one knew who I was. No one needed anything from me. No one expected a thing. I opened my phone. In my photo gallery, only a few recent shots remained. Windows, alleyways, and this dinner. No more family photos, no more twisted memories. I deleted the last one left, then lifted my phone and captured a new one, A small table, a glass of wine, a plate of pasta, golden lights above. No people, just the present. The next morning I woke up later than usual, opened the balcony door and let the breeze brush through my hair. No alarms, no work emails, no mom asking about the electricity bill. Just me and a city that was breathing. I opened my laptop, checked the calendar. I was supposed to fly home today. But I wasn't ready. I didn't want to return to my apartment yet, hear the familiar elevator chime, or open family emails. I reopened the hotel website. Extend stay, 2 nights. No itinerary, no tours, no appointments. Just 2 more days to exist as a whole person, not for anyone else, not for duty, not for expectation. I clicked confirm. A soft ping echoed like the period at the end of a small but powerful sentence. True freedom doesn't need noise. Sometimes it's booking a table for one, finishing your own meal, and not apologizing for living fully. Charlotte's story reminds us, sometimes the bravest thing isn't sacrificing for others, but choosing yourself. In a world where women are often defined by duty, care, and being the supporting character, Charlotte stopped, stepped away, and learned how to live for herself. We aren't born to carry everything. Everyone deserves a life defined by themselves, not by obedience, but by freedom and personal choice. What do you think of Charlotte's decision? Would you do the same if it were you? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more touching real-life stories about family and life.